It's your professionalism that I respect.
You know, the first time I heard that on our new intro, I was like, did I hear that? Was that somebody's phone going off?
It's an obscure reference. You know, when Anthony and I first started, we thought that we were morning DJs, and so we wanted to drop in like, you know, the occasional funny clip, but it is pretty good. It's a good clip. The professionalism clip is a good one. Should we just show the clip just to make sure everybody knows?
Oh, yeah. It's your professionalism that I respect.
You know, I'm a science nerd, right? And I love anything science. And I started listening to this podcast called, so they do one called The Rest is History. And then it's all like super interesting history stuff. And then they've got one called The Rest is Science. And there's another one, The Rest is Politics. Anyway, I learned that rainbows can be weighed. You know how much
rainbows can be weighed? Wow, I did not know that rainbows can be weighed. Tell me, how?
You know how much a rainbow weighs?
No, I have no idea. How much does a rainbow weigh?
Not much. It's actually quite light.
Oh,
we haven't done very many episodes recently, and I feel like I really needed to help you, you know, understand that dad jokes are an important part of your life.
I've got so many. I had some that were lined up for springtime, and in Denver it's already getting warm, but I'll give you a couple of springtime dad jokes.
Okay.
So springtime dad jokes. Let's see. How about what season is the best to go on a trampoline? Springtime. That's an easy one, right? How about this one? What do you call a bear caught in a spring shower? A grizzly bear. I mean, come on.
What? Okay. Listen, it's you and I today.
Just you and I. We've had some guest snafus.
Our guests have just decided that they listened to a couple of our episodes. And they're like, no, I'm out. Hell no, I'm out.
Or maybe we're not inviting them. We don't really know. There's technology. We've given our technology over to AI, and we have no idea what's happening.
So we've got a topic today that actually is quite close to my heart, and I know that you can relate to as well. So I think it's going to be a good one, and I think it's probably one of the more important things for founders, especially new founders, to consider. So what if everything you are setting up is the reason that you have not launched? Jesse Metchin sold a $20 budgeting spreadsheet from his student apartment before YNAB, you need a budget, had an LLC or a website. One paying stranger told him more than a launch checklist ever could. Today on How to Founder, we're going to be talking about the first 100 days of a new business, why the conventional launch checklist might be your biggest enemy, and how building backward from revenue changes everything. I'm your host, Stephanie Hayes. With me is my wonderful co-host, Chris Franks. Let's dive in, because I think this is so incredibly important, and this is where a lot of founders get stuck. So you launch your business, and you probably downloaded some, $97 launch checklist made by some startup bro guru.
You just asked ChatGPT at this point,
right? So you're trying to follow it step by step, and my argument would be that you're actually not moving yourself forward at all. You're just wasting time. So tell me, am I wrong or am I right?
Well, I think it's probably for early stage founders. I think this is the thing that you were getting to. It's the mistake that I see the most. And for first time founders and for people that are thinking about starting a business, the thing that they start to think about in their mind is, what is my legal entity going to be? How do I get my accounting set up? what is the structure of my business going to be?
What am I going to name my business?
What am I going to name my business?
Everybody gets stuck on what am I going to name my business?
I mean, it's funny. It's because I'm laughing about this because the advice that I would give myself from back in this phase, it's so wildly different than what I did. I spent the first chunk of time spending all this time and all this money, frankly, on stuff that just didn't matter. And so I just pulled up because there's a famous report by it's CB Insights. It's a insight firm about why startups fail. And I'll wait to get to the main reason, but none of them were incorrect legal entity or your QuickBooks weren't set up correctly. And so the point
your
is
logo was nice.
It's not right. Exactly. Early in the days, the things that we think are important are not important. They're the things that you do that give you window dressing, this idea that you're starting a company, but they're not the critical components of actually starting and building a company. I mean, starting there, I know that we're really talking about what it is, but were those mistakes, do you see those same mistakes? Did you make those same mistakes?
Over and over and over. So I think this comes from just a bit of lack of experience, right? And so, I think that I need to present myself as I think a lot of founders do a lot of pretending at the beginning, right? They and like it's not invalid, right? Fake it till you make it kind of thing. But why would you pretend you're something that you're not? Like you're going to get more support and better support if you're like, hey, just starting out, what do I need? Let me go talk to a bunch of people. But by the time you're actually starting to pull together an entity, you should already know with beyond a shadow of a doubt that you got something to sell. And I think that's the whole point of this episode is like spend the time just proving that there's a demand and that you understand what the answer to that demand is. I was an entrepreneur mentor at the university, and we were putting alumni and students through this startup process, right? And I remember this one group, they were absolutely certain that their technology was going to be wildly relevant to the wine industry. And we've got a big, wine region here. So they went, but we made them go up and actually talk to winery owners before they invested anything in their development. And what they realized is that the problem that they were trying to solve was like mildly relevant to these winery owners. But as they sat and listened to them talk about their wineries and how they run their wineries and what they're worried about all the time, they realized that actually what they were worried about was the consumption of water, because it was like their biggest expense, and they were constantly trying to figure that out. And they realized they could change their technology slightly to solve that problem instead. So before they made any investment in anything or put together any sort of branding or messaging about their product, they went and proved to themselves first that what that product needed to be. And as they found out, once they got out into the world, it needed to be something else. So the value of just getting out there and like getting a little MVP out there and just starting to talk to customers, like can't be overemphasized.
So as I'm thinking about this, I think that there's these two buckets of work that needs to be done. And I think it would be very, very valuable. This could be our book, Stephanie. We could write about the two buckets of startups. There's a, in our business, we call it BLOB as a joke, business and legal obligations, which is the things that have to be done from a business perspective. Some things that are in that bucket are things that you need to do as a founder to create the mental shift in your mind that this is the job that you're going to go do. And I fully understand that. It is hard to leave a community of people, an identity that you had with your job. We all have part of our identity associated with jobs. It's scary to go take that risk. I met with a friend of mine, a former student who's starting our company. She wanted to have business cards because that was the thing in her mind that could shift her into being a professional with a different focus. That's a hard step cognitively. It's hard. It's hard for us to take those. And I fully understand that for a lot of founders, you need to take some of those steps to help you break away from your current job. That's that one bucket. But the other bucket, like, I think that this is the main thing that we're trying to say, is that bucket does not matter. It's for you. And if you need to do that to be able to go and help you break away, you can do that, but it's not really what the business wants and what the business needs. Is it a good analogy first? I think it's popped into my head, and I think it works.
Totally. And I was going to say that too. Like, you don't need to do any of these things, but sometimes it's what gets you motivated and into your headspace that, great, this is a new business, but don't put a lot of resources and, time and effort into the things that are going to make your business a thing before you have completely validated that. Like, you should be putting all these things in place once you have completely validated that what you want to move forward with is going to have legs, right? And I get it, like, wanting to put a website out there and say, hey, I'm legit now, right? There's some psychological benefit to that for sure. But don't temper how much effort and interest you put into it, because it's going to change, right? It's going to change. And and I think sometimes people get hung up on, like, what am I going to name my business and all of that sort of thing, when it doesn't matter. And they don't know that yet, but sometimes it's a delay tactic, right? I can't go out and sell anything until my website is up. And all the folks that come into our program, we have to say this over and over again. You could start selling tomorrow, today, without a website, without anything. You can still sell. And they have to really get over a mental burden to believe that.
It's almost like, and I think this is the biggest and the hardest thing for early stage founders to get, is your idea doesn't mean anything. And I think a lot of us think that when we started, I said, so one of the stupidest things when I was in my big corporate job, and I said, oh, you need two things to be an entrepreneur. You need a great idea and the courage to go pursue that idea. Actually, neither of those things are true. If you have an idea that nobody else has, means it's a terrible idea. Don't go do that. I think that the main thing is to be a founder, you need to put that hat on. And the thing that you and I know, and Anthony and the other very seasoned founders, is that if I go out with this rough idea of what it is that I want to do, if I'm too dogmatic about what this product wants to be and about the market that I want to serve, if I'm too focused on the solution in my brain that I think is going to work, I'm going to fail. Every single time I fail, right? And so it's this weird shift that you have to make to say, I've got this idea or I've got a problem I want to solve, but I can't get too focused on the solution. And so many of those tasks about the website and about marketing and about your logo is about an individual solution. Is that true?
Yeah. So I studied innovation in all my post-grad work, right? Like, that was just an interest of mine. And I was really curious about, the mindset behind innovation and how you operationalize innovation and all of this sort of thing. And I think the affliction that founders have is that they're only a true founder. It's only legitimate if they've come up with something completely novel and new. And I can tell you, after many, many years, like, the goal of business is to make money. And you can make money as a fast follower or iterating on something that exists already. Like, look at Microsoft. They're not innovators. They're fast followers. They put their resources behind making something better, right? And they often wait until a nascent product has been out there and gotten traction, and then they're like, great, we're going to build this into our suite. And it's a perfectly legitimate. I'm working with a woman who's building a piece of software right now. And you know what we're doing? We're looking at all the competitors out there and absorbing all of their products, because that's going to help us we're not making a new category of product. We're actually just iterating on something that exists already because we know there's a way of making it better. So this like obsession with innovation and being first can actually really cripple you. And so I think that founders need to hear that because the goal is to make money as a business. It is not to boost your ego by, you're not only a business if you've come up with something brand new. Do you agree?
I think that the other point of this is it's this really dangerous narrative. And again, I think I participated in it for way too long, which is startups are only companies that are created to be funded by VCs. And VCs will tell you, oh, we want next curve. We want a curve jump. We want to be innovative. We want to be further out. And that's true. There's a couple. If you get in front of Sequoia, they want to be those people that are very far up in front. They're willing to take these gigantic founder fund, the Silicon Valley guys. The vast majority of VCs don't. They just want to invest in profitable businesses to return money into their capital so they can continue to be VCs, right?
Yeah.
But this idea that you have to start this company in this massive industry and this new idea, it's going to completely revolutionize everything. There's like a 1/100% of companies that ever do that, even successful companies that ever do that. And by the way, it is lonely. It is lonely to be in a company that you're way far out in front, and you better be really good at raising capital. I mean, you've probably started and sold 2 or 3 companies that were way more boring, that were in current existing markets, for you to be able to go raise the money to be able to go do that. The vast majority of us mortals, the job of the company is to make money. And what does that mean? Find something, a market that's underserved, or find a product that's not serving the market and go compete.
Or tell a different story, right?
Or tell a different story, right?
Yeah. PitchBook's highlighted story, was it this week or last week, was about a PE fund that just sold for like a ridiculous amount of money doing a roll-up of garage door businesses.
It's a terrific
garage doors, right? And all of those, like, this is the model that we're following with our PE fund, is we're building a roll-up of, a small niche market where there are lots of players, but nobody's talking to them. And we've figured out how case in point, we have spent the last 10 months working with these very specific businesses as advisors to prove the concept that we're building into our investment thesis for this PE fund. And it is not like, it's not new. We've just found the right angle. And that's often what happens with successful businesses, is that if you can tell a great story around what you've got, and you can tell people, and people are already used to this sort of category of product or service or whatever it might be, you can tell a great narrative around why this is what's slightly different and the problem that you're solving and all of that sort of thing. But you better be able to do that before you invest in building a business, because otherwise you're going to be on a slippery slope downhill. And I think there's another angle here, that to found a company or to be an owner of a company, you can also buy an existing business and build on that. I mean, I think this is like the Kobe Sanchez and, what's his name? There's a bunch of people out there who are sort of advocating for this. Buy a boring business or buy a business and innovate on that. And to me, it's really smart, right? It's like, take something, make it better. Take something that's proven, make it better, So there's all sorts of different ways to sort of skin the cat. But again, the primary reason you're doing this is to make some money. So make sure you're going to do that before you invest your resource. Unless, like I said, you're an experienced entrepreneur and this is your 3rd or 4th go around the moon, and you're like, I'm going to bet on something totally brand new and this is going to be fun for me. Great, do that then.
So if we go back to my 2-bucket analogy, the first bucket is stuff for you, right? It's like, you need to be able to do that. And I get that. I needed to be able to go tell my family and my friends, my coworkers, this is what I'm going to do. And here's my company name. And here's the website, because that made it real in my mind. But you and I and other people that have done this multiple times, we don't do that. We have this project approach. And so if that other bucket is the bucket of things that you're going to do for you, talk to me about how you approach a project. And again, it's really hard when I say I've had 5 startups and 2 exits, things like that. I've had 50 startups. It's really hard to say that because 45 of them were projects. It just never quite got there that I got interested in, thought there might be something there. It turned out not to be a thing, or my interest turned someplace else. That's how I approach it, which is this project idea. Is that how you approach it?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I'm a big trier, and I will very quickly shut something down if I'm not feeling the alignment, right? But I'm like if you think about like the Clifton Strengths, for example, I'm an activator, which means that I want to get something going right away, because the people who hang back and don't get started and don't jump in, like making a thing first to prove that there's a market, it's because they're afraid of failing and they want to get it right. And this is the biggest plague for business owners is I have to get it right. I can't fail. I don't have that gene, whatever it is. Like I'm super happy to just like keep iterating and keep trying things. And once like what we're doing right now, I could not be clearer because we just dove in and tried and started and just had this philosophy that we'll know when we get there. And you just follow, like if you sit back and you follow the energy and you follow what feels really easy, it's easy for a reason because there's no friction. And that's just experience, right? So the very first thing I'm going to dive right into is what am I selling? And then of course I want to make brand palettes because I love fonts and colors. But I honestly, at this point in time, we have a business that's making good money right now, and we don't even have a website. Like we're making, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and we don't have a website. And one of our potential clients asked us that the other day. Well, can I go look at your website? I'm like, not really.
No, not a thing.
Then eventually we will, because we'll eventually be selling to a bigger audience. But there wasn't any point in having websites. It's not how we sell.
I think there's as I'm thinking more about this, I think that there's this concept, and I think that the problem that founders have is if I ask you the story of your business, you start from when your business was founded.
Yes.
There is, for most founders, we have a wide, long, tumultuous, stormy area of the pre-founding stage of the business. And I think that this is maybe, and I think maybe one of the issues is because you and I understand the pre-founding phase of a business. I think people that have done this understand the pre-founding phase of a business. If you haven't done it, you think that your entrepreneurial journey starts when you found the business, and nothing could be further from the truth. Once you found the business, you're gonna be sucked into sunk cost fallacy. You will be. There's no question, because you've now put so much energy and you're starting to actually create something real, and it's gonna be a thing. And so now you're gonna be subject to sunk costs. But projects aren't like that. You can just work on a project.
Yeah. I mean, I was in Toronto a couple of weeks ago, and all I did in Toronto was build a piece of software. Like I didn't take any meetings. I didn't take anything because I just needed to know if it was possible and what I could build. And you have to have those sort of bursts of experimentation. But like we're already looking for potential businesses to buy in this niche for our PE fund and investors. And we haven't even set up the fund yet. Like we're in the process of doing it, but we've gotten to the investment thesis and proved the market before we had a legal entity. You know what I mean? So once you get some experience under your belt, like your main thing is going out and this is a confidence thing, right? This is the chicken and egg scenario. Some people need to see a business card in order to feel like they can go out and sell what they're serving. But I feel like I can speak knowledgeably about, I can sell better when I am certain that I've got a market. Like knowing what I know now, I can probably sell anybody into what we want to sell them because it is so dead clear to me and we've proven it and we've immersed ourselves in it. So I think actually being a consultant and being a service provider is a really great way to figure out what you want your business to be, right? Because you get to work with all sorts of different clients, and if you focus on a specific market, you get to pull out the commonalities. And to me, I keep sitting here going, this can't be this easy. Like it can't be this clear and easy, but it is because we've invested the time to do it.
So I think we should get to, kind of the purpose, which is the thing. But I think that even as we talk about pre-selling and going out and proving market, talk about your process in that project phase, the pre-startup phase. If you start to get interested in something, how do you do that? And I know really, because both you and I are going to say we go talk to humans, right? We go
That's how
talk to right, but what are the forces that you're looking for? Because I actually do have a defined process here, but it, just like you, it always starts with the customer.
Yeah, I go and try to sell it as a service, right? Like, and actually, Claude gives really good advice here. It says, did I misgender Claude? I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know. Yeah.
Claude says, like, don't go and build the biggest in this software process, for example. Don't go and build all the APIs and everything first. Go and get like data downloads, dump them into your prototype, and then prove that this is the same metaphor, right? Like just do it messy to begin with, and then eventually you can make it this sort of polish. And it's this is the number one thing is your business evolves. Your business will never stop evolving. And so people get into this mindset where they think like I have to arrive somewhere and then I'll be successful. But actually, like people get really bent out of shape about this because they're like, I've been doing my business for 5 years and I haven't arrived. Well, look backwards. 5 years ago, you wanted to be where you are right now. And so if we can accept that owning a business is just constant evolution, and we don't set success based on arriving in a certain place. If you arrived in a certain place and you stay there, you failed. Right?
So
I think
this is the famous CB Insight study. So this is one you can just go out and Google CB Insight startup failure. It's published and you can see it. Looks at backwards from why startups fail. And you don't know this study, Stephanie, but tell me the number one reason why startups fail.
Oh my God. It's like a tie for 3. They haven't proven a market.
That's it. So no market need. Now, what I would say is in our world is no product market fit, right? Our world is, have you created a solution to a problem that somebody wants to buy? And that's really, even though it's so simple, it's a hard thing to do. 42% of startup failure is because there's no market need. That's the thing we're talking about. Why start a company unless you already know there's a need or demand in the marketplace for what it is that you're selling?
Yeah.
That's the main component.
I think there's a caveat to that, because I've seen this happen too, that there is a market need, but you don't know how to articulate it. And you're not able to convince the people you're trying to sell to that they need this thing, right? So I think it's like you could have a market need, but you're on the bleeding edge and people don't realize they need it yet. So then you have to be a really good storyteller and you have to know how to message it. And I've seen this happen. Like super smart solution didn't have the right way to sell it.
Number 8 and 9, poor marketing and ignore customers, right? Like that idea is, I'm so obsessed with my technology. I'm so obsessed. This happened in our world a lot, the software world, where it's a beautiful, elegant, incredible piece of technology that didn't solve any problems. Great piece of technology, like good piece of code.
Totally. And so what's the number one reason?
That was no market need was number one. Number two is ran out of cash.
Oh, yeah.
I would say number one and number two are the same. You know, I'm thinking these are founders reporting back of why they failed. If you run out of cash, it's because you're not selling or you haven't built the product you need. Again, we're in a very strange world. And I think that this is probably the next line that we need to talk about. All of the things that we've known for the past 20 years of doing this job has changed in the past year.
Yeah, 100%.
It is wildly different environment for founders today than it was, I'm even going to say 12 months, 18 months ago, right? Because of this thing called AI. I don't even know what it is. It's spelled AI, but I don't know what it is. Right. And so we're now living in this world where you as a founder can go think through, validate, do all that project work in an afternoon.
Yeah.
It is not, however, going to solve the problem for you going and talking to people. And this is the thing I think is incredibly dangerous, Stephanie. I see incredibly smart founders that sit in this room and build a cool prototype in an afternoon and they go do the thing. But building shit's really cool. Building AI, building cool little applications is really fun. And for us, it scratches this dopamine itch, but it doesn't solve the number one reason why startups fail, which is human beings don't need the thing you're building, right? And that's the primary component.
Yeah. I was going down a rabbit hole last night. You know, I'm down the AI rabbit hole in a big way. But there's all these bros out there who are like, you can build a business without any employees. And yes, in a way, it's sort of true, but not. Anyway, but this guy was like, it was a tutorial for how to use some AI page builder kind of thing. And it was pretty slick. But then he's like, great. So learn how to use this and everything, but you still need to know how to sell it. And so he's got all this like complementary parallel education around how to actually sell what you're creating using this little AI tool, right? And I thought that was sort of on the nose, right? It's like, well, how are you going to package this up and get this in front of? Are you going to just like run a bunch of ads? I mean, maybe like that's the draw right now for all these people. But you can hear it and you can see it that I've figured out the technical side of this, but I really don't know what my business model is. I don't know what I'm doing here, and I don't know how I'm going to sell it. And for some, for some of these guys, they just sort of get out there, flood the market, and then figure out what it needs to be if they're smart enough to sort of pivot. No problem with that. Like that's great. But the rate of innovation right now this reminds me of when the internet became a thing, right? Do you remember like it blew my mind and I was just like, holy smokes, this is addictive. And so it's going to follow the same curve, right? We're going to get saturation and then people are going to figure out how to use it in really intelligent ways. And they're going to build like fundamental game-changing, some of them are going to build fundamental game-changing, platforms or technologies, and that's going to be great. And all of this stuff is necessary. It's a necessary part of the innovation cycle. But the traditional way that we did startups is 100% changing, and we need to be aware of that.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very interesting time. I spent probably last 10 years or so of my journey. I'm now in med tech, but before that, I was in growth marketing. And growth marketing is this idea that you take a more engineering and disciplined approach to all marketing customer acquisition. It strikes me, and I've said people that AI killed marketing. Marketing as a discipline and as a company, as a service provider, I think that's dead. But the need for that disciplined approach of testing and measuring audiences and using a very systematic approach to go through and try to identify the right who, what the problem is you're solving, how you're solving it, and how you message that to them, that disciplined approach is more important than ever.
Yeah.
And so growth marketing is dead, but the approach isn't. The approach is still pretty good.
That's the big thing that's driving me crazy right now is all these people having these conversations. Oh, these people are going to be out of jobs. Like, just stop, right? It's the normal innovation cycle. Yes, your job as you know it might change, might go away, but it's on you to now decide how this is your opportunity to now get into the role you probably always wanted to be in, but you couldn't because there was nobody to do the grunt work, right? And so you like ads managers, I think, are going away. Ads managers from the perspective of what they traditionally did, which is all data driven. And frankly, an AI technology is better at looking for patterns in your data than you're going to be as a human being. So reinvent yourself. So what does that mean? You're still going to need somebody to drive strategy, right? Now you get to do the strategy work that you're always complaining about that you want to do and you can't do. AI can't do that quite yet. All it can do is say, okay, here's what I know. You've got this data and that data, and I'm going to make decisions based on the rules you give me. And even from a creative perspective, all AI can tell you is that this one's performing better than that one, and we're seeing these kinds of behaviors. But you still need to be a human being that understands other human beings. And now you get to reinvent your role into something higher value that frankly you probably enjoy better, right? This is the mindset people need to start taking rather than this sort of catastrophic, because that's never going to happen, right? Like change is going to happen, you're going to shift, but to say, oh, everybody's going to be out of a job and unemployed, fuck, stop it, right? Like this is normal, natural evolution, and it's an opportunity for you, right?
I want to get to one other question before we start to wrap up, but there's a famous study that I quote a lot to my students is it's EQ versus IQ is 50% of your success up until you reach a role of being an executive. And then EQ is attributed to 80% of your success after that. I think it's something very similar to the world that we're living in for founders, because I can have Claude or ChatGPT or any of these other models help me handle data, but I can't sit across, it will never be able to sit across the table and look at you in the eye and understand when I've said something that actually resonates with you in a sales conversation, or even just a, hey, what do you think of this conversation? Like, what do you think of my idea? Sort of a conversation. Here's the thing that we just need to do before we wrap up, which is we've talked about the pre-startup stuff. We've talked about going and talking to people. How do you do that? And I know it's like breathing for me and you, but if you're talking to a first-time founder and you're saying, don't quit your day job, if you've got an idea, if you've got a problem that you've become obsessed with, you've gone and done your AI research and market research, what are the steps that you take to go out and try to identify whether or not that's real?
So a lot of people would say, go talk to your ideal customers. I mean, great, like sure. But I actually think the more valuable and easier conversation to have is someone who already knows the industry, but is not necessarily an ideal customer. So I would go and look for someone in my network who knows the wellness industry, and I would go chat with them. I would just talk to everybody I can. Like Parker and I, my daughter and I were in Croatia, and we were at a bar in like where they film Game of Thrones. It was very cool and everything. I just started chatting with the guy beside me. Turns out they were our ideal customers for the PE fund, like the work that we're doing right now. Just happened to be there in Croatia on a big trip with a whole bunch of people like him who were clinical business owners that wanted to exit their business. I'm like, of course, like this is the idea that we have.
Exactly.
The guy sitting right beside me, right? So like you just got to talk to people, and you got to constantly say, even if you don't know if they're even related to it, but go seek out people who know the industry or who would know your clients, because I think that's easier. Because if I'm sitting in front of a potential client, I have all this pressure on me that I kind of have to sell them on something. So go talk to somebody who knows the industry, so somebody who's like a neutral sort of expert, and then they can start introducing you to other people, because it's really different when it's a sales conversation as opposed to like purely research. But the more you can just chat and the more you can be okay with hearing things you don't want to hear, that's good information, right? That's where I would start.
I start with
What about
other
you?
founders. I start with this idea that every business is a series of 3 to 5 hypotheses, right? Hypotheses. And each of these things have to be true for my business to work. I've got to have an audience that will care, et cetera. And so I start by just writing those down I mean, on a sticky note, they're not that important. And I go talk to people like you and Anthony and my other founder friends, and I go, hey, of these, which is weakest? In your mind, which is weakest? And they don't need to be industry experts. As a matter of fact, I think there's so much sunk cost that exists within industry that sometimes thinking from just the foundations of business principles is better. It's better than going. And then what I do is next, Stephanie, then I go try to talk to people in the industry. How do you do that? It's very, very simple. There's this magical tool in the world that's called LinkedIn. And you go find people and you connect with them and you play the startup card. Hey, I'm a poor, lowly founder. I haven't started anything. I promise I'm not selling you anything. I really would love to get advice from you, Mr. Sage, super smart. People love to give advice. They love to help startups.
Ew.
And so you play that card and you go and talk to them and say, here's the theory of my business. I'm very early. I'm not trying to sell you anything. However, at the end of it, I always ask this question. Hey, if I build this thing, would you buy it? And if so, for how much? And then and after they say yes or no, I say, can I hold you to that? If I come back in a month or 6 months or whatever, would you really do that? And that second question is the honest one, because then it's like, oh, I'm actually being asked to buy something. It's still a hypothesis at that point, but at least I'm going out and doing that. And your job early as a founder is to go have 5 to 10 of those conversations a week. And I mean it, a week. Go out and fundraise well before you fundraise. Go out and talk to 5 to 10 people a week to try to figure out whether or not this thing is going to work. And I promise you, if you have 30 to 50 conversations, you will figure out whether your idea is going to work. Do not sit in front of your AI. Do not sit in front of Google. Do not build color palettes and logos, Stephanie.
But typefaces and fonts.
Exactly. Don't go build a website. Go talk to human beings that you think actually might buy your product.
I think there's a little other piece that I realize I do as well, which is super like triangulation for me. I'm super happy to go have the conversations, and the more conversations I have, the better. Like, I bring it up to everyone I know, even if they're not people who are founders, if they're not even part of business, they're friends, because everybody knows somebody. I think there's another thing I do where I almost go like full saturation in terms of like reading Reddit threads and like getting the like immersing myself in the market. And more importantly than reading articles, I read conversations people are having, because that's where the real stuff really starts to come out. And we're going into the transactional wellness industry, which I've admittedly never been in, and immerse myself in the last 10 months in it. But I go look at conversations people are having about the relevant parts of the industry for me, and it's fascinating. Like, that's where you get the real kind of, what do I need to solve? Okay.
I think it's amazing too.
I will clearly say, however, we need to.
You need to talk to humans too.
Yeah, 100%. Never, ever, ever replace that. But I think that there's other pieces. Like, if you're going to go do research as well, it's not, people always want like, oh, competitive research and analysis of my competitor. Fuck off. Like, just, it's not going to give you anything. It's a total waste of time. I do think going and looking at people who are already in that space gives you really kind of good signals as to what people are investing in, but then you get trapped into this, like, well, I have to do what they do. So, last question, because I want to bring us back to the original topic. People go and download these lists, launch lists, startup lists, and we're making the case that maybe that actually shackles you. But to the original point, it's also a comfort, right? Like, for somebody who doesn't know at all where to start, maybe some of those things are good advice, right? So how do you approach, as a new founder, what should you be looking at those with? Like, great, here's a launch list, and some bro marketers like, start a startup in 12 hours with just doing all these things. How does a founder look at something like that and say, okay, this is giving me a bit of comfort, but what do I need to think about? What do I need to sort of like keep in mind as I'm looking through those?
I mean, I think that the primary thing is that I didn't know this, but you can start a business without ever having a business incorporated. You can start a business without a website. You can start a business without a URL. You don't need, and it's funny because, you know, my friends that have been in this world for a long time, I just use their Gmail addresses because 15 different domains down the years, right? And so you can have a Gmail address and still go out and schedule meetings. You don't need any of that stuff to get you actually started. And as a matter of fact, legally, at least in the US, is that you can start a business and make a whole lot of money and never be incorporated. It's fine. You just are a solo entity at that point. And so all the legal and accounting stuff, I mean, there's a couple of things you want to do, try to separate your business expenses. But even that, you can go back through your credit cards and highlight stuff later. Don't worry about the actual business and legal obligation stuff. That stuff, even though it seems hard and confusing, any founder can talk you through that in about 15 minutes. It's not hard. The other stuff is hard. Finding the market is hard.
It's almost like those launch lists become useful once you have figured out what, like, you've proven that you've got an idea. Then go check off a bunch of lists, right? Because you're ready to set everything up. But yeah, I would agree. Okay, so you're going to do this.
The other thing is just to compartmentalize that pre-startup phase versus startup phase. That's the one thing that we don't talk about enough. We go through project after project after project. That's fine for us. That is the work of finding a startup, and your startup is successful because you've done the pre-work, not because you've created the correct legal entity.
It's almost like we need to create a different pre-startup list.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's our book, Stephanie.
It's our book. I got it. Okay.
Make sure that we cut.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Anthony's not going to be part of this.
Let's just tell Anthony that he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, you are doing the speed run.
Oh, I'm answering the speedrun questions.
Yeah.
Good.
Do you need to do some breath work or anything?
No, I'm good. Hold on. Woosah. All right, go ahead.
Get yourself centered into your root chakra. All right, hold on. Okay, here we go. LLC first or first sale first?
First sale. First sale.
Perfect product, 0 customers, or ugly product, 10 buyers?
If you are excited about your product, you've launched too late. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Get that ugly guy out. Get some customers. I love it.
First hire, accountant or salesperson?
Salesperson. I mean, neither. You're the salesperson. The accountant is always going to be somebody. And by the way, do not listen to lawyers and accountants when it comes to actually talking to people. They don't have good advice for you. I don't know if I froze or you did.
Your co-founder wants to plan. You want
to sell. You froze.
Your co-founder wants to plan. You want to sell. Who wins?
You do. You go sell. Okay. You sell like hell. You go and you sell. Like, that's period, hard stop.
And you don't have a co-founder. Last question. A launch that nobody notices, is that a disaster or an advantage?
I just think it matters. I mean, it's probably an advantage because you're paying less attention to this thing called a launch and more attention to the foundational of building your business. A launch is a moment in time. Does it really matter?
I think like having a big fancy launch actually puts too much pressure on you. Like, just launch quietly and just start doing the work, right? All right, good discussion. Couple resources: Ready, Fire, Aim by Michael Masterson and The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau. Okay, good conversation today. Obviously, we could talk about this forever. Do you want to close?
Hey, we appreciate you guys. Appreciate the work you're doing. You are the pioneers of economic prosperity. If you like what we're doing, hit like, hit subscribe, give us a good review. Particularly Stephanie and I. Don't mention Anthony. Like, we're way better. I know.
Don't mention Anthony.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But we appreciate you. Keep doing that hard work, and we're incredibly humbled to be here along the way. And we will see you next week. Another episode, How to Founder.
It's almost as if you have no business training at all.